Hey, welcome back to Church the Podcast, man. We're so excited for today. It's going to be amazing. We have a great topic, and I don't know if you've ever just found yourself with really nothing to do, like,
Oof.
or what you were doing, you weren't interested in it, and you just didn't
Had
know what to do
nothing.
with yourself,
Had nothing.
you
Yeah.
know? So today we're going to talk about boredom.
Oh,
What is it? Like, how does it apply to us? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? And how do you feel about it? Right. So
mm,
for me, boredom, right, is when whatever you're doing does not spark your interest. Like you're just kind of
mm.
going through the motions. Right. So I believe some people um, have a period of their life where I think their life is bored. Their life doesn't excite
Yeah.
them. Whatever they're into, they may be in school, they may be working a job that does not excite them. They may be in a relationship that no longer excites them.
Mm,
And they've just become stagnant, just being bored with the mundane of
mm.
life. And I believe that's a place where it's very dangerous because where there's a lack of passion, there's a lack of forward movement. And when you are just like circling the wagon, doing the same thing, getting the same results, that's when I believe things attack you in life that
Yeah.
get you off your course. Example,
Mm.
if you've been trying to read the Bible and you're in a part of the Bible that's hard to read, like the
Yeah.
lineage part,
Yeah.
like Jessup begot, those
Yeah.
parts
Just
where it's just
name
like a
after
list of
name
names,
after name.
and you're just like, this is hard for me to read, right?
Yeah.
And you just kind of get bogged down in that spot. You probably should jump to an area of the Bible that's a little bit more exciting, so you can kind of push forward, right? But
Yeah.
boredom in certain spots can hinder you from making progress or continuing on a task or goal. And so I watch for those things. Like I watch for what really excites me, what really gets me pumped up. And some things, to be honest, you just have to change your mind about. You have to
Mm.
just fight back on boredom. You just can't, like, I'm not going to read that part of the Bible. That's not the answer, right? Sometimes you just got to change your opinion or your attitude about something so
Yeah.
you can force yourself not to get bored with it. You have to reframe it in your mind. So for me, when I lack interest in something or something I just really don't want to do,
Yeah.
and my mind can call us astray, I either have to reframe it or I have to jump to something that I know that I will enjoy.
Mm.
And it may be a different part of the task. And so in life, sometimes the way things are laid out for us to do, sometimes we have to rearrange them.
That's right. That's
If
real.
you've ever put a piece of IKEA furniture together, and IKEA doesn't sponsor us, but here's a
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
example, right? Um, I don't think you can get bored, man. Because trying to understand the directions and put it together itself, like, don't
Yeah.
jump around. That's a bad example. Don't jump around in that because it will never come together. You have to follow the directions, right? But there's some things in life where you can take things out of order in order for you to bypass the things that may bore you,
Yeah.
right? Not everybody has a graduate high school and go straight to college. Some people work a job. Some people
Mm.
travel. Some people volunteer. Some people go in the military and then circle back and go to college or however they do life, right? So design your life that God has given you in a way that it doesn't set you up for boredom, right? Try to
That's real.
avoid things that you lack interest in if at all costs you can. But you will run into things that will inevitably like back
Yeah.
you against a corner. What do you think,
Sure.
Jason? How do you feel about boredom? What's your take on it? How do you feel about that?
So I don't even know what boredom is anymore. Like the minute that we started having kids and you're no, I'm just kidding. Like I think there's moments I'm bored. Honestly though, I feel like I have an unfair man, maybe just an unfair lifestyle for a lack of boredom. Like in fact, there's moments where I think like a little bit of boredom could equal rest. Like we have another episode about rest that you guys can go watch. But for me, boredom doesn't happen a lot. So like just before this episode, I was telling you about my schedule today.
Yeah.
And with, working 2 pour into people's lives through being a professor, being a minister here. Like, I think boredom would be like kind of at a premium. Like it'd be okay to have a little bit of boredom.
Yeah.
But I don't think, and this is kind of where I'm headed with today's episode in my thinking, I hope, or I think is, boredom doesn't really have, for me, it doesn't have a lot of benefit.
Ooh.
Like boredom just leads to, bad choices.
Ooh.
Right.
Okay.
So I've been at jobs like this job that I'm at currently. It just feels like even in a moment of peace, there's something I could do, or there's something like, and I, again, I'm not advocating, or not again, I just want to be clear about it. I'm not advocating for workaholism. I'm not, I am not. Yeah, that's going to be interesting I'm imagining what the captions are as it tries to figure out what I just said.
That's good.
Being a workaholic is not the answer. And I don't think that's what I'm saying, and I don't think that I am.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I just have a job that I'm passionate about.
Okay.
That I care about doing a good job at, and that impacts other people. So I have the advantage of not really being bored. So I don't feel like there's a lot of room for bad choices, like I said before. And so here's an example. I worked a job a few jobs ago, and there could be a lull in work. Like sometimes it's very busy and it ramps up and then comes down again and you don't have much to do. Well, boredom begets checking ESPN scores.
Okay.
But the interesting part about that is I'm looking at ESPN, I'm looking at social media, whatever it is. That's not really benefiting me. I could probably use my time better, but maybe it's because the thing that I'm working in right now, I'm not finding a passion in, or like I'm not working hard to. Let's be clear. It isn't the job's fault. Like I need to work harder to make good choices. So if someone's paying me to do something, I'm sure there's ways that I could use my time more efficiently. Maybe do some research into other like design practices or programs I could use that could make our job better, but inevitably, I think for most people, if you don't have the unfair advantage that, and I'm so grateful, I don't take it for granted that like I have this unusual job that most people don't have, and that I don't get to feel bored a lot. And I'm thankful for that. I don't love being bored. Like I don't like, to me, when I was in the workplace and I had those moments where I would check social media or check ESPN and just kind of be sitting at my desk, I don't want those moments. Like to me, if I hit a lull in my workday, I want to, man, I wish I could go do something else because there's like something at home. And I think a lot of people have this, like it's a distraction culture. Like I have this stuff at home I have to do, or I know I gotta, pay these bills. But the conflict of that, especially if you're trying to be honorable, is that you need to be honorable to your workplace in terms of like focusing. Right. And it's not just about workplace. To me, it's honorable to focus all the time. Like whatever you're giving your attention to, you're honoring both the people that you're with and yourself. Like you're maximizing your ability to pay attention, your ability to impact that situation, maybe seek out ways to improve the situation. So I would say boredom is fine. Like on vacation, I feel like boredom is another word for rest. Like you don't have anything to do. Hey, maybe that's good. Maybe it's nap time, right? But boredom, I think, for me, has this negative connotation about like, well, what could you be doing to advance? It's like what you said, right? Or if you're bored at your job, what has God given you a passion for that you could work to attain?
Come on.
So for me, that's part of the reason I went and did my master's degree. Was like the current job I was in was fine, but it wasn't this like, I didn't feel like it was as fulfilling or like this was God's specific calling for my life. So you could sit still and just recognize that you're bored. Maybe some people take advantage of that. Like I'm bored. So, hey, this is a good chance to like surf social media. the challenge of our culture is that like it's such a big distraction that you end up not going anywhere. It's just stagnation, right?
Okay.
And so what I don't want in being bored is to stagnate. And that is my like, oh, I'd be so afraid of that. Just to get stuck.
Okay.
Not advance, not move forward, not benefit another person's life or edify the people around me with what I'm doing, to just be, I got nothing to do. There's nobody I could do. So here's the crazy part, right? My story about boredom, just bang the mic. My story about boredom goes all the way back to elementary school. And so this was a time where, yeah. So I'm sweating right now because I'm not bored, running from place to place. So elementary school, I didn't enjoy being bored, so I didn't allow myself to get bored. So what did I do? I would finish my work, and there would be students around me who hadn't finished their work for the day. I would start talking to them. Well, this happens so often that my report card at one point, no kidding, and this is like not to pump myself up, this is really to show the abstraction here. I had straight A's in school and straight needs improvement on behavior column.
Ooh.
When you get those report cards. Yep. So I'll never forget it. So S was satisfactory. U was unsatisfactory in different columns that weren't grades, right? So like you had behavior, attendance, all these things. And I say all these things because I don't remember what the other ones were. But attendance, satisfactory, man. I came to class. I had S's. But that behavior column was riddled with the letter N because I needed improvement. And what was it? My parents would be like, man, are you picking fights? Are you like, what's up with your behavior? Are you like throwing things at the teacher? No, ma'am. What is it? So they would get called for a parent teacher conference. And every time it would be like, Jason is a good student. We like him. That was the interesting part too, is it seemed like all these teachers would point out like, we like Jason. We like his personality.
He's a good guy.
He will not stop talking. This dude, no matter what we say, and to their, what would I say? Like, to their credit, they continue to work with me as teachers, and I appreciate it. They didn't like kick me out of class, but it was disrespectful of me. And I don't know that I even really recognized that. Yeah. I was so bored as other students were finishing their work that it would just like rattle me inside. Like, man, I want to share ideas. I want to have an outlet. So as I matured, that boredom would turn into like sketching in class, to the point where I'd have whole notebooks that like, comics drawn and things like that. And so I feel sympathy for people that are bored. I guess I don't want to come across as saying like, never be bored, because I had behavioral challenges because of boredom. So they made me switch schools twice just in elementary school. And it was to make school more challenging, right? To raise me up. Like, there was a program called TAG, Talented and Gifted. They moved it up to try to challenge me.
No flex. No flex here. No flex.
Big deal. No
flex
big deal.
out to all the tag people out there. Let's go.
That's what I'm saying. Shout out to our, what is it? Like the AP honors kids, IB kids, all that. So the truth is I had to take tests to like get into the program. And I took the tests. I would pass them. They'd be like, yeah, he needs to go to a different school. Well, I got to tell you, for me, I was bummed. I was like, I will have these friends. I don't need, am I getting in trouble for talking? They're like, well, no. At the time, I didn't understand, like, you need to be more challenged. And so that's the point of what I'm saying to people is, if you're bored, I'm not taking a shot at your job. I'm not taking a shot at the people around you. I'm not taking a shot at anything going on in the world other than to say, challenge yourself.
Yeah.
So like I said, part of my boredom, like if I got bored at the job, I was like, well, let me go get my master's degree, because I feel like that's closer. Being in front of students is closer to pursuing what I feel like I'm built for than me sitting at a desk.
Yeah.
So ask yourself or pray about it. Like, what is God telling you you're made for? Right? What is it that you're most suited for? And how can you challenge yourself to get there? The thing about boredom is, I think, and you tell me what you think about this. I'm not, this is me just like depositing an idea and I'm not 100% sure. I think boredom could come from fear.
Ooh.
So specifically at a workplace, right? Ready. So you're doing a job And you're like, well, I don't want to overstep and like, I'm done this portion of my job. I don't want to step on anybody's toes. I'm afraid that like somebody's going to say something if I try to go above and beyond. So I'm just going to check social media. I'm going to let myself get bored. Like I'm going to do nothing. I don't want to out anybody, but I've known people that work at government contract positions and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're actually not allowed to because of how the government money is split.
Mm-hmm.
They can't work on other projects while they're at their workplace, because if they did, the next year, if the government found out, they would take away some of that money that's allotted to your salary, because obviously your program doesn't need it because you're able to go work on other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been people who split time between projects at government facilities and were told, please stop doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So what do? They ask, what do I do? Literally reading the newspaper in the office, taking a long lunch, going swimming was one of the stories I heard, like at 3 p.m. every day. They would leave because they're done their work. There's nothing left to do. They weren't neglecting anything, but the boredom of, oh gosh, what'd you call it? Inefficiency.
Yep. Not being challenged, not having anything.
Not being challenged.
Yep.
So I think fear, like that government program was afraid to lose money. Here's another thing. You're stuck in a job, but if you take a step and go to grad school, you're afraid that, are you doing that for no reason?
Will it pay off?
Yeah. Is it going to pay off? Is God really going to reward that thing? And maybe if you're not even like involving God in the decision, what if I spend all this money and it doesn't pan out? So what do? You sit behind the counter, you sit at your desk, you sit at that machine that you pull the lever on every day. Like there's people who I feel like just don't take a step and pursue promotion, pursue a different career that might be more suited, things like that, because what if it doesn't work? So what do they choose instead? They choose boredom.
What if?
I never got bored playing sports. I don't think I've ever been bored playing video games. And if I did, you just cut it off. Like there's things in life where you can get bored briefly, but when it's something recreational like that, you can just cut it off. When it's your life, you can't just like stop doing it.
Ooh.
Right? You can't just cut the power switch and hit reset on life.
Ooh.
You have to make choices to go. And so what do? Like if you're bored right now, what would you do?
Wow.
You're right. Would you pursue something great, or are you going to let things distract you? So I'm saying fear. That's what hit me as I'm talking about it. All the moments I could think of, all the examples I could think of. Warren, do you feel like you've seen, or like what kind of causes boredom for you? I'm just throwing out fear as one possible potential option. People don't want to take the chance.
Ooh.
So they just remain bored.
Ooh. I think
I'm going to wipe some sweat now.
I think you brought up some great points there. I got to kind of unpack a little bit of that before I get to your question. So you brought up some great points there about how, well, let's start with the fear. You brought a great connection between fear and boredom, or fear and inactivity, or fear the lack of movement, like which creates just empty space, right? Like boredom's kind of, I think we associate boredom with like having nothing productive to do. I kind of look at boredom like you could have a whole bunch of stuff to do. You could have tons of things to do.
Oh yeah.
But you don't want to do them.
Right.
And so these tasks bore you, so you avoid them, or you occupy yourself with other things, right? I think most people have like these smartphones. I mean, like who doesn't have a smartphone, right?
Yeah,
I'm contemplating getting my 8-year-old a smartphone. Yeah, thumbs up on smartphone.
Thumbs up on a smartphone.
Right?
Yeah.
So these little screens like run our life. Like they're so smart. They give you a report. They tell you, "Hey, you've been looking at me too long. Stop
You've been staring at me a long time today.
Like, time to take a break." You know?
Yeah.
I'm like, they're so smart. Like, put me down, right? You think?
Please stop.
Yeah, the phone will tell you, like, "Hey, go do something else," right?
Yeah.
And you're like, some of the social media stuff or whatever you do with your cell phone, right? It can consume so much of your time. It'll just like, you'll look up and an hour's gone and you're like, I really could have did something with that hour. I can't get that hour back.
Yeah.
And you're wondering like, well, how did I get sucked into that? That's not what I didn't wake up this morning and be like, I'm going to spend 10 hours on my cell phone today,
That's
collectively
real.
throughout the day, right?
That's
But
right.
if some of us check our reports, the phone will tell you, yeah, you were
Sure.
here for about 11 and a half hours. Like,
Yeah.
wow. Like, am I bored? Right. So am I disinterested in my life? Like, why does this little
Mhm.
thing, right? Why does it consume so much of my time?
Yeah.
Is it because the tasks that I need to do in life or the things that will push my life forward, make my life more meaningful, am I just not interested in them? And so I believe in like being actively bored, like actively distracting yourself away from progressing in life, growing in life, moving forward in life. And I believe fear plays a big part in that, right? I
Okay.
think it's the fear of being uncomfortable, right?
Yeah, that's
It,
true.
it's it's
That's
the
true.
it's the fear of being challenged. It's like exactly what you said, connected with the challenge and being uncomfortable. Because that's the
Mm.
reason we don't want to question or move the status quo, right? We will
Yeah.
grow. Like if you ask anybody, hey, you want to grow? And they'd be like, yeah, I want to grow. You want more money? Yeah, I want more money. You want a better life? Yeah. You want to
Yeah.
live for Christ? Yes. And they're like, okay, you have to do this, this, and this. And they're like, that equals sacrifice.
Mm.
I don't want that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't, that's not what okay, you know what? Let me just stay the same because I fear being uncomfortable and I
Mm.
fear changing the status quo of my life. I like my life where it is. I don't mind going to the next level if the next level doesn't cost me too much.
Oh, that's real.
And therefore, that's where boredom comes in because we've already settled. We've said, you know what? I'm good. I'll take an upgrade if it's free, but I'm not paying for the upgrade. Right? Like I've got
That's
to a
real.
point where I'm like, I'm good and I'm not going to kill myself for the upgrade. I'm good in coach premium. Okay.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
economy plus, I'm good. But if the first class seat is open and they give it to me, I'm good. But I'm not going to challenge myself to
Wow.
live in first class. I'm good.
Yeah, yeah. I
Right.
never really thought about that before. That boredom, like, and I'm gonna kick it right back to you, but I just want to say that was mind blowing for me. Like, sometimes we just look for comfort.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, boredom rears its ugly head as comfort.
Yep.
But I think the thing we're saying is like boredom isn't rest. Like
Mm.
rest is this active choice.
Yep.
And even comfort can be like,
Mhm.
I continue. I guess we just got back from vacation a few weeks ago. So I think back to like our time in Florida, we're vacationing from our everyday life. Like we're seeking comfort and rest. It's
Mhm.
like usually don't seek an arduous vacation, right?
Mhm.
Like a really hard on us vacation. Some people do, like some people mountain climb and stuff, but that's also relaxing for them.
Yeah.
That's not boredom, right? We're not seeking boredom because boredom is kind of a passive response
Mhm.
to you wanting to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Like that fear, like that was great when you said. Anyway, I just wanted to kick it back to you, but like that was really good about boredom. Is like the negative consequence of desiring comfort
Mhm.
all the time.
Yep.
I know Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot, where if you're seeking a comfortable life, that's going to be an unfulfilling life.
Yep.
Without challenges, our brain doesn't grow, our relationships don't grow. Like there's so many ways that God designed us to pursue.
Mhm.
That's the word I think of. Like we're designed to pursue relationship, to pursue learning, to pursue growth, forgiveness, relationship, all the things on and on and on. Pursuit. And so what is boredom? It's like a lack of pursuit.
Yep.
Comfort is not a lack of pursuit because I feel like you pursue comfort. Like, man, a hard day, I'm going to take a minute, have a cup of coffee because I know it's going to help me reset and serve people better is
Yeah.
kind of like where I hit sometimes. Or like, I need to go for a run because I know that's going to reset my mentality. And so I'm not pursuing disconnection. I'm connecting with rest.
Yeah.
And boredom being a lack of pursuit because of fear, because of pursuit of comfort, whatever it is, that just hit me. Like when you said that, that was
Yeah.
mind blowing. Like, oh, I'm just comfortable. It's like, but aren't you bored?
Mhm.
Like, are you bored or are you comfortable? So, anyways, because boredom is where things rear their ugly heads.
Yep. And that's where, in that space, you were just talking about, in that space of boredom, is where we find the complacency of life,
Mm.
right? The complacency of settling,
Yeah.
in settling, people um they will connect this to like prosperity or to being greedy, to always wanting to achieve things. Well, this
Yeah.
is the truth, right? God made us to grow. He made us to have life and have it more abundantly. And that doesn't equate to money in the bank, cars in your driveway, or mansions, right? That means
Mm.
growing spiritually. That means growing emotionally. That means being a better witness for Him. That means growing
Yeah.
in God and improving. It doesn't necessarily mean materialistic things, right? And so
Yeah.
when we settle, right, this is what happens when we settle. The things that we should be doing, right, to grow, right, they look boring to us.
Mm.
The things that God wants us to pursue, He wants
Yeah.
us to pursue, they start to become boring to us because we've fallen in love with where we are. Like I'm a subject to this. I've had this heart check to myself. Like, there are things that I need to do in order to grow, not to make
Yeah.
money or not to get more stuff, but to grow as a person, as Warren, as a person that God can be proud of, as a person who can speak to people and love people better and make
Yeah.
the community that I'm a part of better, right? The things that
Mhm.
I should be doing now look boring to me. Like people say, well, when's the last time, how many books have you read this year? Oh man, I don't want to read. I want to play video games. I want to be entertained, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really don't want to, like are you consistently journaling? Are you really when's the last time you've just taken a course for the reason of taking a course? When is the last time that you've put together a presentation to help people? You're like, oh man, those things don't bring me comfort. They challenge me. Those
Mm.
things don't,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm good. Like
I just want to
I've
relax, you
I've got a
guys.
job, I got this to do, and there's like all these things that we
Yeah.
should be pursuing that God's put inside of us and called us to. They were like, man, I'll get to that when I get to it. Right?
Yeah.
Like I believe
Yeah.
inside of some people there are tasks that they're born to do that have now become like a burden, boring to them. There's writers
Mm.
out there that are not writing because they may think that writing's boring right now because
Yeah.
they have they've fallen in love with where they are. And comfort is the enemy to all dreams. It's the
Mm.
enemy. And I'm not a
Yeah.
component against comfort. I mean, everybody needs some comfort in their life, right? But
Yeah.
being comfortable also makes you complacent, which also brings on the boredom thing because now unless the thing serves you like
Yeah.
instant gratification, it's boring. When you
Mm.
start reading a book, the first couple chapters may not be as rich to you. Maybe you need to read the whole thing before you get the whole synopsis, right? And that may
Yeah.
take you a little bit depending on what you're doing, right? That's just an example I'm using, right? So immediately in the first couple of hours, you're just, and especially if it's a tough read. And this is what I've learned. Some of the greatest books, they start off tough. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
you know they're hard to get through, and that's a metaphor for life. Some of the greatest things that we can do to reward that are rewarding and building us up,
Yeah.
they cause us to stretch. Like when you first start working out, it's
I was
going to
about
be
to
a
say
couple
that.
weeks of consistency before you really
Yeah.
start getting the beach body, right?
Man, that
And
first workout back
oh
is
yeah,
always like,
oh
whoa.
yeah,
Like
you
I used to be
know.
able to do this, you know?
And abs are built in the kitchen. So those first couple months of eating, like
Right.
I really
Clean,
can't have
clean.
bread. No, you
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like
And
those things are difficult. And so it's like eating healthy, man, that's boring. Come on, give me the cheese, man. Where's the
yeah,
cheese at? Where's the cake?
that's real.
Where's the
Yeah.
cake? And so the things that would make us better, they're no longer attractive to us. What's
Mm.
attractive is the destructive stuff. Right? So
Yeah.
for me, boring is an indicator that I'm not growing and I'm not going.
Yeah.
Right. So it's more of less of a feeling for me than an indicator. So when I feel like I'm bored, it's time for me to have an honest conversation with myself and say, what am I not doing that God wants me to do? How am I not growing and how am I not going? Because if I'm bored, that means I'm not moving. I'm not moving as far as a person growing, and I'm not physically moving forward. So I use those things to kind of guide my life. Like, and the truth is, it sucks. Those evaluations suck because I mean, you're looking back at yourself like, I gotta be honest with me. Like I haven't done the things I know that I'm supposed to do.
Right.
Right.
I'm not doing
and those
well.
things aren't attractive to me right now.
Yeah.
Because I've allowed myself to become complacent and boring now attacks. Boring is kind of wrapped around my purpose and my dream. I'm like, wow. And I'm like, I just need to find something that excites me. I need to find something that excites me, but everything that excites me doesn't produce good in me. Like video games are good. I mean, I love sports. It's football season, right? But ultimately, let me just be honest with you, right? This is Warren checking Warren at the front door, right? Ultimately, at the end of the football game, I've gained nothing.
Yeah.
It's empty calories. It's good. I mean, let's go. Having the stats, watching the people. Guess what? The football players are richer. The owners are richer. The television stations are richer. The people at the stadiums who sold me the food are richer. But I'm not richer through that experience.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And so, but that's exciting. That's not boring. Have you ever been to an NFL stadium? That ain't boring at all. But it don't, for the people in the stands, they're entertained. Right. They're entertained, but they don't gain anything from it.
It's not like you might gain a memory.
True.
You know, like a tied down memory, but like other than that, it's correct. Yeah, you bought a memory.
Actually, you lose a little bit.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, that's what I'm saying. You the bank account hurts after a NFL game for sure.
Yes, it does.
No shade. I don't mean to like.
No shade. The NFL does not sponsor us.
Yeah. That's a different conversation about finances. We got to go back to that episode But you're right. Like the amount of time. That's the interesting thing. Is like the things we fill in that boredom space, right? So the research that I do for fantasy football every year. The amount of one day I felt really kind of convicted because I'm pretty good at it and I won my league one year.
Oh, you're really good at it.
And I was excited. Yeah, man, come on. I won last year. Shout out to MagFam. That's the name of our anyway.
So do you coach do you charge to coach people cuz I'm going to need some help with mine?
I'll do it for free. So when the challenge though, this is what my point was, like I won the league, that's great. And so again, I spent time. It cost me something. It feels good to win it. It's fine, but it's just like bragging rights. Well, the thing that stuck out to me was the amount of transactions I did. And so it's not the financial, it's the player transactions. Like when you pick somebody up off the waiver wire, now we're getting in the weeds, right? For people who don't know what I'm talking about. When you're adding players to your team, when you're taking players off of your team, when you're trying to like put together the best lineup possible. For those that don't play fantasy football, you basically combine the best possible players from all the different teams in the NFL. You get a certain amount of points for what they do. And then you're trying to put together the most points each week from things that these players do on the field. When I tell you, you can look at our league and see how many transactions, how much player movement you did throughout the year.
Yeah.
When I had like quadruple the second person in our league, I was like, man, I'm going to spend too much time on this.
Wow.
I think I'm feeling like when I had like 120, player transactions and the next closest person had like 30 or 40, I was like, oh, I might be spending a little too much time like trying to perfect this whole thing, And I don't know, like I'm not in love with it. I just want to do well at it, but I don't think it distracts me a ton. I try to find time for it, so I'm not making excuses. My whole point is like you're filling those times of boredom with stuff. Now, here's where I check Jason at the door. I did 120 transactions. I might even be able to tell you the roster I ended last season with, or like a few seasons ago, or man, I'll never pick this player again because he got injured this many times in a season, blah, blah, blah. Now ask me what the second verse of chapter 4 of John is.
Ooh.
And I got to tell you, I'm just admitting it out loud. I cannot tell you.
Ooh.
I have no idea.
Ooh. That's a hard check right there.
Yeah. I just want to convict me. Like, wow. I like when I'm bored, am I like, man, what is John 4:2?
Ooh, wow.
Right? Like, and who knows? It could be some benign verse, like some, and none of the
Wow.
Bible's benign, but you know what I mean? Like like Jesus traveled from Galilee to here, you know, that kind of
Mhm.
thing. I don't know. But why do I know that George Kittle, the tight end for the San Francisco 49ers, shout out George, welcome to come on the show, lost 30 pounds in the offseason because of surgery on his labrum, blah, blah, blah. Now he's back up. Like, why do I know that? Like, why? Because that's where I'm investing my time.
Wow.
And so that's cool. By the way, that's not totally inappropriate because I think I use sports to build relationship. So I think there's some positive, like, oh, you heard about George Kittle? I did, blah, blah. And I don't think hero worship is good. Like, there's whole episodes in each of these things I'm talking about. My point is, when I'm bored, am I checking my fantasy team? When I'm bored, am I going to watch football for 3 hours? Or like at halftime, am I cracking my Bible? Because one,
it's good.
Right, one is really entertaining and fun and gives you something to talk about for a little bit, and then it's just always moving and changing. One is the constant user's manual for our life.
Come on.
And could help change generations of people. But why do I choose the one that's most entertaining, right? Because it's fun, it's flashing lights. So I have to fight that, like what you talked about, some of that boredom of like, slow your life down, right? Open your Bible, read that, and then read that again. And then read it again until it's like that, you know that better than the stats of your favorite quarterback this past week.
That's good. That'll preach.
You know what I mean? So here's my challenge. Not filling my impatience with other things. Like when I'm bored, maybe I'm just being impatient. So I'm like, hey, entertain me real quick. Hey, people on TV, can you dance and sing for me real quick? You know, can you act and entertain me? And I'm not saying you can't gain things from that, but to me, I'm challenging me specifically, but maybe some people listening, like, are you filling the space of your life with things that are edifying? Like when you feel boredom come on, how do you fight it? Right? Do you fight back with as much Netflix as humanly possible? Or do you fight back with some Bible and some conversation or some reading, something to edify, something that will help you the next day? And oftentimes I don't choose that. I do not choose the thing that is most edifying. And sometimes it rolls downhill. Sometimes I have to check myself. And I don't think I'm the worst one, but I don't care. Like I need to do better. It's not about looking around and saying like, who did worse?
Yeah.
To me, it's like what we want to do when we feel bored is like, how do I do that better? So that's where I'm at with boredom is like, I want to fight back against it.
Yeah.
You know, boredom is this thing that like, you don't have to settle for. You just have to convince yourself of what's really important. And that's the thing is like the things that fill up our space and our boredom, we give real priority to.
That's good.
The TikToks of the world, the Instagrams of the world, hey, somebody might be bored and turn on this podcast, right? But like, I hope this is edifying. I hope this is like at least more beneficial than, I don't know, something else to your life. So, but man, don't we know, like, that's what the enemy really wants is to drive you to the things that will edify you the least and will distract you the most. So that's the danger of boredom is, what is the phrase? I keep trying to remember, like, it's something like idle hands are the devil's playground or some, is that right? Okay. I don't want to massacre that. I'm sure somebody listening is like, actually, you know, for the historians.
That's the concept,
like,
right?
Yeah. It's like, don't have idle hands. Like don't sit and do nothing because
anything
that's where things seep in.
Starts to enter.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
So that I just don't want that. Like I don't want, first of all, we have such a limited amount of time on earth.
We do.
So like if you're bored, there is like a lot of work to be done. There's relationships to be had. There's edifying things to be done. You have the energy. You have the time. So if you're bored, like go down the street and see who you can go play pickup basketball with. Go down the street and like just go walking. See what you can learn from nature. So this was cool. I heard Robert Kennedy Jr., RFK, and Tucker Carlson talking the other day on Tucker's podcast. And they were talking about how nature is like the most connective thing to God. And what's happening is, for some of the people in our world, they want to like impact that negatively, just whatever that is, like our environment, all those things. Well, to me, we all have an opportunity to walk out in nature and learn something. So to me, that's like, you could fight boredom right there with imagination. Because by the way, both are the same. It's kind of like, you could have imagination, you can daydream, you can do those things. Boredom is kind of that same thing, that space where like nothing's quite happening, so I need to fill it. What if you filled it with some imagination and wrote those ideas down?
Come on.
Like, how do you think the great books, the great, I mean, we keep talking about it, but I don't know how it keeps coming up, but like video games, like all these ideas, you kind of have to be bored more often to like let your brain settle and output these ideas. So boredom can be good. And by that, I mean, schedule time to be creative, right? And I know it's just like a semantics game where people are like, oh, schedule time to be bored. Well, like, fill the boredom actively, not passively, and fill it with things that are good for you. So that's the challenge. Is I think I see students all the time. I see my kids, even myself. I notice that I'll fill my boredom passively. And that's that dangerous window of like, that's where things get in. That's where songs get in, where you're just like, oh yeah, these lyrics are probably not good for me, but like, I really enjoy the beat. It's just about the beat, you know?
Yeah.
Or I'm watching these videos and like, man, this couldn't be less edifying. Or like, I'm watching two famous people fight on something or whatever. Like, why is that?
Yeah.
How is this helping? Like, what? And by the way, what is it about boredom? Explain this to me. I'm going to kick it back to you on this one. Why is it's so funny when you're bored and you try to fill it with something like you talked about, like the empty calories, you just keep eating. Like, why is it I'm on TikTok and then like an hour later I'm on, and I know this doesn't happen to me a lot, but you're like swiping and you're just like not eating.
You hit it.
Right?
You're on it.
Yeah. It's just empty. Like when you're bored, we fill it with such empty calories that like, it doesn't actually make me less bored. I just killed the time from here to here, from hour 1 to 2. Yeah.
Killed it.
And now I got to go do a thing.
Yeah.
Now I got something already scheduled. When I could have used all that time efficiently or effectively, or to go have lunch with a friend or something. I don't know. Anyways,
come on.
No empty boredom calories.
So
like
good.
That's the goal, right?
Dude, that'll preach, man. But you know why, right?
I do.
This world is filled.
Back to it. Yeah.
This world is filled with things that are designed from the ground up, and you're in design. You know how to use colors to make people feel a certain way. It's a whole science behind it. Like you kind of told me a little bit about it. I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. And it does, right? This world is designed with things that will take the most precious thing from you. And most people are like, oh, it takes my money. No. You can always make more money if you have this one thing. You can always get more stuff if you have this one thing. Like you can always, if you destroy relationships, you can even repair them if you have this one thing. And the one thing is time.
Yeah.
And the reason why these things consume so much of our time, and we're like, man, what did I get out of that? Like, because it's designed to take your time away. I mean, legitimately, if the enemy can take your time, right? He has your life.
Yeah.
Even he like, you know what? I don't need all of it. Let me just get 4 hours a day. Let me get 4 hours out of your 24. Guess what? I've just shortened your lifespan. Years, right? I've taken productivity, things God has called you to do. What you were supposed to be won't happen because I got 4 hours out of your day every day. Boom, you'll never get it back. You can't buy it back. You can't take a loan out and get it back. It's gone, right? And so empty calories, like potato chips. And I like potato chips, nothing against them. I mean, they're not good for me, but I like them.
That's funny. I like them, but I might have something against them.
Like after I eat potato chips, I'm like looking at the bag, like, where did they go? This is a family size bag. It's gone.
What just happened?
And I'm just like, I'm still empty. I'm like, there was no substance in it, right? So we were designed to be filled with purposeful things, things that, that fill our soul and fill our heart. Like legitimately, I can go to church on Sunday and be full for the rest of that day, all the way until like Monday, right? Until when I get back in the Word of God and I can do Bible study by myself and be full for the rest of that day, right? Doesn't even take a lot of time.
Yeah.
Right. But when I don't fill myself with God, I can
Mm,
just consume. I can
yeah.
just consume things that are not of him. Like nobody's business. YouTube, shorts, let's go. Boom. Just mindless things I don't need to see or know. Just, and at the
Yeah.
end, I'm just like,
Yeah.
what just happened there? Don't feel
Yeah.
like it. You know,
Yep.
or just mindless video games. Fun. Boom. Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and you're just like,
That's interesting. Like to me, there's really something there. Like to me, I notice those things are fulfilling. Like, and again, this is kind of my way of saying like, we're not really telling you don't do any of these
oh yeah.
things. Like video games for me, something struck me. When my sons ask, hey, can we play? And we all play together. Like there's 4 or 5 of us with me and my sons or my kids playing. My daughter will play too. Like when we get in there and start playing, you're interacting,
Mm-hmm.
you're socializing. And then there comes a point where like you've played that game a bunch, we've done a bunch of things, we're socializing together. Maybe we switch games, but I think that's like the healthiest version of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so like you watch football, okay? And so we mentioned it is empty calories, but it's interesting to me. I have great memories of my dad and I watching basketball games together.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're together with somebody, when you're in relationship, it's not because you're bored. It's like a shared hobby. This is your
Mhm.
interest. This is like building relationship, right? And so that's my challenge for people is include others in what you're doing.
Mhm.
So the biggest challenge is like when you want to watch that show, maybe don't just like sit in your dorm room and watch it by yourself, right? Don't sit at home and like not include people. Like find a way to incorporate these things into a social life. Because God designed us for a relationship with Him.
Come on.
And then with other people.
Come on.
So I feel totally called to love God and then love other people.
It's good.
As much as I understand He loves me. And so how do we live that out? Well, you have to live
Mhm.
that out. You just go and don't operate in fear. Don't operate with impatience. When you feel bored, I wonder what would happen if you just text a friend. Like think of one friend and encourage them. Like I'm just bored. Who knows? Maybe that becomes like a dinner invite. Maybe that all of a sudden your life is full. And I'm not suggesting fill your life with overwhelm, right? But I am suggesting filling your life with life-giving moments.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to do that is to fight boredom actively.
That's good.
But it did strike me. Like we're talking about, I didn't want to end this episode and people be like, got it. Don't play video games. Don't watch football. I'm like, no, I'm going to, after this, in the coming weeks, I'll probably be watching the Miami Dolphins on opening day. Right? Like I'm excited, but I'm going to use that to like talk to my students on Monday. And so, and again, let me not pretend like I am watching it for me, but also I'm thinking of ways to use that to build a relationship.
I like that.
It's edifying for me because I enjoy sports. I like competition. Maybe there's something about like you live vicariously through athletes kind of thing. Like, you know, you used to play, you're like, man, that was a great play. I remember great plays. But I'm saying continue to utilize it.
Yep.
All those things like you're writing a sermon, use a football analogy, use some kind of connective tissue. It's like shared experience, right? Don't just make it like, man, I'm bored. I'd like to waste my time. And I think that's what you've been getting to all episode. Don't just waste your time. Your time is too precious. Funny, you brought this came up recently. I was listening to a podcast about Bitcoin and I heard the best definition. Shout out to Jack Mallers. He said, money is just time and energy abstracted, right? In abstract form. Like I go to work, I spend my time, I spend my energy, they pay me. That's all money is. You're spending your time and energy. And so when it comes down to it, like you said something a second ago, like it isn't your money, it's your time. Well, it's really interesting. Like at some point, your money is your time because you usually have to output it. Like, man, if you are pulling money off of a money tree, send me the address. I will come hang out. You know, no, but seriously, like if you're typically not just pulling money for nothing.
Yep.
And if you are, okay, I would still challenge you, like maybe, you know, use that for good. But for most of us, when you're outputting time and energy and receiving money in return, Like that's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like don't rest in that. Like earn your money, I guess I would say. Use the time wisely. Build things that are great. Make people's lives better because our life is so short.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's wonderful. You have the time. This is like what a paradox this is, by the way. We have the time.
Yeah.
Like we have tons of time, but we also don't have much because we have tons of time, 24 hours in a day, get 8 hours of sleep, guys, 16 hours a day to make somebody's life better. But you only have 70 years, 80 years, maybe 90 or 100, right? You got to use it wisely.
Yeah.
And if you're bored, find something, get active.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean physically, like write a poem, like write something down, start making moves to output because God didn't design us to just like sit around and do nothing.
That's good.
So
That's
you
good.
got any closing thoughts? Like I think I'm praying this out.
I got the kind of the overarching theme I think we're trying to get to here because I think we kind of beat up on things we talked about empty calories. We talked about what we do when we're bored. And I don't want to leave you with the connotation that you shouldn't do any of these things, right?
Yeah.
You just shouldn't eat the whole bag of potato chips. You can have potato chips. You just shouldn't eat the whole bag in one setting.
That was our point.
It's perfectly fine to play football, watch football, but these things are the desserts of life, right? They're the desserts of life. The problem with excessive boredom is that when you just start eating dessert, it starts to kill you. Right? It starts to kill your nutrition. It starts to kill your health, right? That these things are only good in a limited quantity. And sometimes we get bored with the thing because we have it so much, you know? And then we start looking for something to amp it up, right? And it goes to different levels of things. And then in excess, anything can become sin. Right? And that's the danger. That's the warning sign of boredom, right? Don't get us wrong. I'm not saying, hey, don't play video games, don't watch football games, don't Netflix, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying don't live in that space.
Right.
If you become a habitual dessert person, like every day I have to, this is what I do, then that's probably that boredom click right there is probably giving you a signal to make an adjustment in your diet.
That's right.
To put the main thing on your plate, right? And that's your walk with Christ, your growth in Christ, and your purpose on this earth. Because watching football has no purpose. It is good though. Don't skip dessert, right? Just don't have it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Right?
Real talk.
You know, and then you don't need it every day. You know, so it has its side effects to it, right? But it's meant to be enjoyed. It's here for our entertainment. The thing is, don't be afraid to miss out on entertainment. You don't need it all the time, 24/7. Right?
Yeah.
Don't forsake growth and moving forward, your life forward. Sometimes we have to put, dessert aside to achieve a goal.
Yep.
And then it tastes so much better, right? When we feel like we've kind of earned it instead of like, I'm entitled to it. Like, that's
real.
So that's kind of the cap I want to put on there because I think you kind of really brought us back to the perspective of, these things. I don't want to give you like, hey, man, they're really tough. Like, no, we just want to, you need to have this balance in your life.
That's right.
And if you're overly bored, there's probably some adjustments you need to make.
And I can only think of one caveat to everything we've said today is like, maybe for our European listeners, it's like American football is not your thing. So like soccer, don't go on a diet of soccer. Maybe like, for our Canadian listeners, it's hockey. Maybe for, it's tennis, whatever, golf.
The world in general is getting really good at basketball. So
that's real. Well, hold on. Whoa.
Man,
I wasn't really sure.
Minute.
I just want to make sure I never say anything negative about basketball.
What?
That's funny. I was like, no, we're not. We will not on this show slander anything. Basketball is life. No, I'm just kidding.
The world is getting really good at basketball.
Yeah, the world is getting really, sincerely good at basketball. It's really cool.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, if it's basketball, so funny enough, maybe we should redo the whole episode and like dub over football with basketball. Cause that for me, man, that was one idol in my life, right? Like if I was bored, I was doing something with basketball. Yeah. And it wasn't, the other beneficial B word Bible. It wasn't that. I was like, let me find basketball.
Yeah.
And so, man, I idolized it. I think I worshiped basketball for a while and it didn't edify my life in a way that I know Jesus can.
Yeah.
So now that I've made some of that switch, like basketball is still awesome and I still love it. And it was still probably the first thing I ever really fell in love with that was sacrificial, spend time and energy. But the most important thing I fell in love with Jesus.
Come on.
Right. And so that's all I'm saying. Realize where your love's at, where your heart's at. That's where you spend your time. And let's be actively bored, not passively.
Come on. That's good.
Anyway, yeah, man. I'm going to pray us out. I appreciate you guys listening. If this was boring for you, I hope you turned it off and you were listening to something active. And if it wasn't, I appreciate you staying with us,
Let's
guys.
go.
God, I just thank you so much for energy. I thank you for time. I thank you for the ability to spend both. I pray against any negative consequence of boredom. I pray that you would help us put it aside, help us be active in our pursuit of you, in our pursuit of rest, in our pursuit of relationship, in our pursuit of whatever is healthy and best for us. I pray that you would bless everybody listening to this podcast right now, and just continue to share yourself with them as often as you can. I thank you for everything you do for us. Thank you for this podcast. I thank you for Warren's friendship. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Dude, so good. That wasn't boring for me at all. Ooh, celebrate good times. Come home. Yeah, it was awesome, brother. All right, we'll see you guys in the next one.